Welcome to the show. Today is very special for a number of reasons. So this is the first time the show will be broadcast and also be available as both a podcast and on video. So it will be available on YouTube. You can find that through my website, lisavirtue.com. And at the end, I'll give the information again. But the biggest reason this is a special show today is because of my special guest, Nanci Danison. I'm so thrilled to have Nanci joining me today. I encountered Nanci through a video online, and then I read some of her books that she has. She's an author, obviously, but it's what she writes about that I find so exciting and uplifting. You see, Nanci had a very profound near-death experience. In fact, it is the most extensive one I have ever come across. And I'm quite interested in near-death experience accounts. And so I've listened to quite a few and read quite a few. So it's definitely a notable experience that she's had. And I'm just so thrilled that she's come to join me today. So welcome to my show, Nanci.
Thank you so much for having me on, Lisa. And thank you for doing the video. It's an adventure.
You're welcome. It is. It's an exciting new step for the show. And I'm so happy that to have you doing this first one with me.
Me too.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction to Nanci's story because it's a bit challenging, I think, for her to talk about how the experience began. But what we're most interested is in what happened during her experience. So was it 1994, Nanci?
Yes.
Yes. Nanci went into the hospital to have a procedure to deal with breast cancer. And during that procedure, certain things occurred that led her to ultimately dying, passing away, crossing over to the other side. Now, she obviously came back, and I'm so thrilled that she did for all of us so that she could tell us her story. She could tell us what happened when she crossed that veil. So I think the best thing here to do is to just let Nanci tell you her story of what happened, and I'll jump in with questions as they come up. I think we could probably fill hours and hours of conversation, and maybe we'll end up doing a part two, but let's see what we can get into our hour today. So Nanci, if you could just start us off with, that initial experience of as you were crossing over, and then go into what happened.
I was sitting in the mammography room because it was before the actual surgery, and I had to have what's called a needle localization procedure. And that's where the radiologist sticks a needle into the center of the 3 tumors that I had, and then pulls the needle out and leaves a wire there so that the wire will show the surgeon where to cut. She had finished that and taken an hour and 15 minutes. We'd done the whole thing twice. So the radiologist and the radiology technician left the room, and I was just sitting there by myself, in a chair in a hospital gown with my arms on the arms of a chair and the needle sticking out of my breast. And I was sick as a dog. My heart rate was way up there, and I couldn't slow it down. I was sweating, I was nauseous, and I started losing my vision and my hearing. And the next thing I knew, I could feel myself pulling down and out of the middle of my body, and then whoosh, I was standing in front of my body, which was still in the chair. And I said to myself, wow, I didn't know you could do that. And I focused forward, and I was in blackness, but it was a comfortable blackness. It wasn't scary to me. And then I saw this tiny pinpoint of light in the distance. And I said to myself, oh, I'm supposed to go into the light. And as soon as I thought that, I was in the light. Wow. And my experience kind of went through stages because I didn't know I died. I'd never lost consciousness. I didn't lose one moment of awareness. So I didn't know what had happened. And I'm just in the light, being filled with like wave after wave of unconditional love and acceptance. The love I expected, it was the acceptance that really just blew my mind. I felt I was loved no matter what I had done. I was accepted no matter what I had ever done in my human life. And then the information started downloading into my mind. It seemed like everything I'd ever been interested in and didn't know the answer to during Nanci's life just came flooding into my mind. The biggest one of the, and I call them knowings. And a knowing is different from learning something. A knowing is having everything there could possibly be known about a particular topic in your mind all at once, all completely understandable. And the biggest knowing I received was about the fact that I'm not human, that I'm actually the soul inside the human. And that, my personality, obviously my sense of humor, was still the same in the light, in the afterlife, as it had been in my body. And the only thing that was missing was fear and the fear related human traits, or greed. I still had anger. I experienced that later, but so I spent a lot of time, with just getting this information. And Lisa, I could talk for hours nonstop. So if you want to ask a question, or if you want to guide me,
I'm just fascinated and enraptured by it. Well, I was just thinking while you were saying about that unconditional love and acceptance. And just before we started our call, we were talking about how we tend to be most judgmental of ourselves. So did you feel, while you were feeling accepted by Source, were you feeling that for yourself as well?
No, I was too busy trying to figure out what had happened. And then when I started getting the information, I was like, oh, wow, like just watching it like pop into my head. And then as I was watching the information pop into my head, I realized I could see through the back of my head. And I could see through the back of my head and down into the mammography room where Nanci's body was sitting. And I saw her, and I did not recognize her. Wow. And I kind of like went around and looked at her, and I thought, wow, I don't know what all that vanity was about. You sure don't look like much now. I mean, that's literally what I thought. And but then when I realized, well, body's down there on Earth, and I'm in the light, and I said to myself, nah, I couldn't have died. I mean, I always heard you go through this tunnel, into the light, and I'm already in the light without any tunnel, and boom, I'm in a tunnel. And, I don't get the celestial, loved ones surrounding me, angels singing, glorious stars. I get dirt and an old, smelly, moldy, like a railroad trellis over top. And there's, railroad tracks over top. And it's like a tunnel underneath the railroad track from like maybe 1920 or something. And I could smell it. I could smell everything. I could feel everything. It was completely as real as anything I've ever experienced in Nanci's life. And so then I started testing that, because I realized it had appeared when I thought the word tunnel. So I did a couple more tests to see, if I was the one creating these environments, and I was. Then next I saw 5 lights in the, well, that's when I finally decided I must have died. And that seemed to be like a turning point. And I saw 5 lights in the distance, different colors. And I said to myself, oh, this is a typical Danison moment. You're supposed to go into the light, and I get 5 of them, and I got to pick the right one. And so then a voice comes into my mind, not my own voice, that said, it doesn't matter, just pick one and follow it. And at that point in time, the 5 lights became 5 beings. And I recognized them from feel that they were my most beloved, oh, this is going to make me cry, my most beloved, dearest, eternal friends. And that I was home, that I was finally home where I belonged. Oh, I spent some time with them. And interestingly to me, they were making noise. They weren't making noises. They communicating telepathically. They telepathically were asking me, like, how'd it go? What happened? What'd you do? Tell us everything. It was like, 5 people that were left on a desert with one movie, and now there's a new movie in town. They wanted to hear the movie or see the movie. And they told me that they were surprised that I had volunteered to come into human life this time to be Nanci, because I was never a good human. I never liked being human. I was never good at it. And they were surprised I volunteered to come into Nanci's life. So then I had a life review, and they participated in my life review. My life review was like a huge bubble around me, and scenes from Nanci's life were like floating all over the bubble. And my light being friends were like popping in and out of scenes, being me, so they could feel exactly what it felt like when I was having the experience. And then one of them was inside the bubble with me. And I realized years and years later, that was the rest of me. Because when we incarnate, we only put part of our energy and personality into physical matter, and the rest of us stays in the light. And so here's the rest of me standing beside me in the bubble. And I got back my memories of hundreds and hundreds of other physical lifetimes. And I was amazed that every second, every moment of all of them, they were all in my mind at once. And I was amazed that I could possibly have ever forgotten all that living. So I didn't watch Nanci's life review, been there, done that. I watched these other lives,
And were those lives, from our perspective now, would they have been in our past, or were they through all time and space? And
well, in the afterlife, there's no time. That's a human fiction, because humans live linearly, and they have one event and then the next event, and so they mark that using the fiction of time. That doesn't exist outside of human life. And so all these other lifetimes were just like all at once. I'm sorry, I made myself cry.
Oh, well, it just shows us how powerful that is. I can only imagine the epic feeling that would be. So I'm appreciating that you're sharing it.
And then I started getting more knowings into my mind, and I realized if I focused my attention on what I wanted to know about, I would get that information. So I asked, who is God? Who am I? What's the purpose of life? Why am I on earth? Where's heaven? Where's hell? And what's the one true religion? Because I had been born into the Roman Catholic Church, and I was always taught that that's the one true religion. So I wanted to know if that was true.
And what did you find out?
There is no one true religion. Religions are all man-made. They're all, got little kernels of truth in them, and lots of myth and superstition and assumptions and projecting humanness onto God, when the God source that I met isn't anything like a human.
If you'd like to either maybe share some of those insights or continue with the progression of your story, up to you.
It was such a long NDE. I want to get through, the whole sequence of events. So,
and you've written about some of those answers in your books, right?
My first book has the answers to those 7 questions, and then it also has a section on what I was told during the review of Earth history would be the way to improve human life. So there's a big section that people probably think I made up, but I didn't. It was what source showed me we could do to improve things.
Right.
Anyway, so after I got those answers to those 7 questions, I was like, I can't believe all those people lied to me. You know, did they think I'm stupid? Did they think I couldn't handle the truth? You know, did they, why? Why would all these religious and my parents and everybody at school, why would they tell me something that obviously isn't true? Because I'm living what's true. And I was angry. And I was surprised that I was angry because I didn't think you'd be angry in heaven, but I was. And I think in response to that anger, I was shown the entire history of Earth from its creation to its destruction, focusing primarily on the development of religions and how they got started and why they got started and all the evolution of religions over the ages and what they would be in the future. So I would understand, why the Catholic Church came up with, the dogma that it did, and that, nobody was trying to lie to me or mislead me, and they didn't think I was stupid. They were just human. They created their beliefs based on human experience, which is all they knew, so that helped calm me down a little bit. But afterwards, I kept saying to myself, somebody ought to tell those people. And by those people, I meant the people down on Earth. And I just kept thinking, somebody ought to tell those people. Well, then I went into, up to this point, I was in what I would call the incarnation phase of the afterlife. And we can enter that and leave that anytime we want, as many times as we want. The next phase is where I continue to live as a spiritual being without any body. And the way I did that was by merging my energy into the energy of one of my 5 friends and living the lives that they had lived. And I popped into their lives, and I could do that either as them, the way they were doing it in my life review, or I could pop into their lives as me, experiencing their lives from my perspective. And I did that over and over. So I spent a lot of time doing that. I'd merge into one friend and then the other, and then sometimes 2 or 3 of them at once, and then sometimes all 5 of them at once. And I lived for a long time like that, just vicariously by experiencing their lives.
So you're experiencing like all of their, what we call all of their past lives, or all of the incarnations they've had, as well as their time as spirit?
Yes. And they told me that I had to get comfortable with that kind of merging into another personality feeling before I could go forward. So with it. So going forward it's not a good word, and I've had a lot of bad response from readers about it, but it's the only thing that I can come up with that kind of fits. I merged into source. And the source that I know is this huge energy field. And it has a core personality and core innate traits. And then its energy just kind of flows out infinitely. So I was coming in from the outskirts of its energy, coming through the corona, kind of little by little, getting closer and closer to the core. And while I was moving through the corona, I watched and felt and remembered creation of the universe. I could watch it through Source's eyes doing it and hearing its thinking and its motivations. I was also at the same time watching it through my own personality and thinking my own thoughts about it. And then I had this like soundtrack that was explaining things as I went along. So it's really, really cool. And so I watched creation of the universe from its beginning to its eventual end.
Wow. Is there anything you can describe about that? Well, it must be hard to put into human words and thinking.
Well, the universe itself, I was shown, is organized on a principle of ebb and flow, or we would call it birth and death. Or maybe yin and yang. I don't know if those words fit, but the universe is created of patterns. from birth to death, or through a cycle of things, or through an evolution of things. And by evolution, I don't mean biological evolution, I mean growth. And I was shown that the universe was a huge bolus of energy that came out of Source's mind. It's just imagined. But the energy came out, we call that the Big Bang, and then disseminated and started forming stars and planets and galaxies and, you know, all the things that we see in the physical universe now. Those all took eons and eons to come together. And Source imposed the laws of nature, we would call them. You know, Source created gravity and the laws of physics and, you know, all the scientific laws that humans discover were all created by Source and imposed on the physical universe to govern its journey. And then the universe, so it went out in a parabola shape, and it's on its way back into Source's mind, and will eventually be absorbed back into Source and will no longer exist as the universe that we experience. I also watched Earth, and, you know, we all sort of know that the beginning of Earth was, you know, gases and physical matter all had to come together and coalesce, and, you know, chemicals form together and form biological entities. I watched the evolution of humans from lower life forms, and I can't for the life of me remember what the lower life forms were. And I have a degree in anatomy and physiology, and I studied zoology, and I wish I could remember that. But I watched, you know, all through the course of history, and then I saw Earth's demise, and I don't remember what happened. All I can remember is saying to myself, oh, it went the same way Mars did. So, and I had watched Mars' destruction, and that's what Earth has in its future, at least according to this review of history and future that I saw. But I don't remember what that was.
Do you think that perhaps you don't remember because it's better that you don't, or?
I think there are two reasons I don't remember. One is I wasn't coming back to Earth, so I didn't really care what the future was. You know, let's face it, you know, it wasn't going to bother me. The other reason is when I was coming back into my body, I was trying to memorize as much as I could, and I just couldn't grasp it all. You know, I remember like 0.0000001% of what knowledge was given to me in the afterlife, and that was enough to write 5 books on. So
yeah, there's only so much we can retain.
Yes, and you know, I could feel the knowledge like seeping out of my mind. Anyway, so the next thing is I got, and I don't know how close, because Source isn't really, you know, like the sun. It doesn't really have a corona, and it doesn't really have, you know, the physical description that I've given it. But I got to the point where I woke up and realized that I am Source, and I did this to myself. That I had never, made myself cry again. I had never been alone in Nancy's life. I had never been sent out here to try to earn myself a way back to heaven. I had never been unloved. I had never been unsupported. That I was Source, and I chose to have these experiences as Nanci because I wanted to. And because at the base of it all, I would always know I was safe because I'm Source. And that blew my mind. And I'm still thinking, somebody ought to tell those people, you know, down on Earth. Somebody ought to tell them. And the next thing I know, I'm like in this whirlwind on my way back down into Nancy's body saying, I didn't mean me. You know, You know,
Anybody
I
but
wanted,
me.
yeah, I wanted to stay. And, you know, and so and I was literally like in a whirlwind, you know, big funnel at the top and going down smaller and smaller on the way to Nancy's body. And I'm trying to memorize, you know, everything that I had learned. And my 5 light being friends were saying over and over and over, love is all that matters. Love is all that truly matters. And I was saying, shut up, I'm trying to memorize the stuff. So then I got back down to the body, kicking and screaming. I did not want to go into it. I fought going into it. I was stuffed into this cold, wet, heavy, freaky monster of a physical body. And I could feel myself percolating through its cells. But I wasn't all the way out to the fingertips or the toes. I was just barely in the head. So it felt like I was seeing through binoculars and hearing through megaphones. But once I got to the point where I could at least have those sensations, I said out loud, I passed out. And the radiologist and the radiology technician had come back into the room sometime while I was dead. You know, I don't know when they came in, and they were at the back of the room, you know, looking at the films up on the view box. And the doctor turned around and came over to me and she says, do you know who you are? I said, oh yeah, I know who I am.
You have no idea.
Yeah, you don't have any idea who I am. Do you know where you are? And I said, mammo room, because I was having a hard time getting the lips to move, you know. She said, do you know who I am? And she was not only my radiologist, she was a client. So I knew her personally. And I said, you look familiar, but I can't place you. And that's when they knew I had been, you know, out of it. So they called a nurse who came running in, took my blood pressure, and it was 60 over palp. Palp means you can feel it, but it's not high enough to register on a blood pressure cuff. And it took a half an hour for my blood pressure to come up to normal.
And during that time, were you feeling yourself like merging more through the body, or were you sort of remaining?
Yes. Unfortunately, I percolated all the way out.
I can just imagine what you're thinking being back in that. Did it take a while for that sensation of your greater self, of being that to shift, or just how's that transition been for you back to human?
I once I percolated all the way back through, you know, they took me over to surgery, and they had somebody, you know, I don't know if it was a volunteer or a med tech or what, you know, but they had somebody with me the whole time. And the radiologist told, you know, the person that she passed me off to that I had lost consciousness. But anyway, so they took me over to surgery, and surgery was great. It was the best sleep I ever had. It was. But from the time that I awakened from the anesthetic, I just felt like the same old Nancy. And I just felt just as human as I ever had before, except that everything I'd ever believed was gone and replaced with something new. And that was hard.
Yeah, a complete shift.
It's like almost having the earth pulled out from underneath my feet, which is kind of what happened.
Wow. Well, I can just imagine what that would be like and how challenging it would be to then make sense of this world again and your relationship to it and how you're going to be in the world. So as that was coming back for you, did you sort of have an inspiration right away of, you know what, I'm going to write books and I'm going to this, that, or did it take some time to figure out what life was going to be like now?
I think I just tried my best. I talked to my surgeon about what happened to me, and he told me, I made it up. I mean, he just didn't believe it. So I tried really hard to just get on with life. I realized I couldn't stay in my law firm. I couldn't.
So you were a trial lawyer, is that right?
Yes, and I was in the white collar criminal defense group in my law firm. We had 270 attorneys and several offices, and I knew I was messed up, and I didn't want my associates to suffer the fallout of that. So I decided to leave the firm, go out on my own, so that if I crashed and burned, nobody would suffer but me. So I left the firm and I set up a solo practice on October 1st. And I spent a lot of time, getting that up and running and working as an attorney. Well, then in December, during Christmas season, there was a movie on TV. It was the Daniel Brinkley story, Saved by the Light.
Mm-hmm.
And I
think
never heard
on
of him.
The radio News for the Soul have definitely heard about Daniel Brinkley. So please continue. Yeah. So
I was watching Daniel, and when he got struck by the lightning through the telephone and he went into the afterlife, I went, that's it. That's what happened to me. I'm not crazy. I didn't make it up. That's when I started really sort of processing the experience. It took me 7 years of emotional and physical turmoil and physical damage to process it. I've got brain damage and other bodily damage. And it was after that 7 years. Well, actually, it was I had to take a year off from work. I was so physically messed up. My body couldn't hold a normal temperature. I couldn't hold a normal heart rate. My blood pressure was going up and down, just crazy numbers. And so I couldn't work. I couldn't even sit up for more than a few minutes. And so I spent a lot of time with my cardiologist. And it was during that year of not working that I started waking up at 4:30 in the morning with the memories.
Mm-hmm.
It was back in the afterlife, and I was remembering, and I started writing it down. And I generated 1,000 pages.
Wow.
And then started cutting it up into books.
And we appreciate that you've done that. Of course, I've read your books and we've spoken briefly, but is that your raison d'etre now? Your reason for being here is to share your story?
That's the mission I accept. Well, when I was spiraling back into my body, I concluded that I had 2 parts to my mission back on Earth. One was to tell anybody who would listen, what I experienced and learned in the afterlife. The other was to experience unconditional love in Nanci's life. I don't remember when I first went to my first IANDS meeting, International Association for Near-Death Studies. And I went to the local IANDS meeting, and I told the story, and I told that I was supposed to be experiencing unconditional love. And the woman who led the group, who is also a near-death experiencer, looks at me and she goes, Nanci, you could always experience unconditional love. Give it away.
Oh, wow.
That changed my life.
Wow. That's hitting me as the most profound teaching and lesson, and so simple, but it sums up everything, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I started trying to do that while still practicing law.
Oh, there's an interesting challenge. How did that work for you?
Actually, it worked pretty well. And I was fortunate in that I was a health lawyer, and I did primarily Medicare and Medicaid and corporate advising, to all kinds of healthcare professionals and hospitals. And they're all wonderful, giving people. All my clients we're just spectacularly open and giving and loving, and so I was surrounded by the best.
Oh, that's fabulous. It's just making me think of how, as you said, we are source, but we are that unconditional love. And I guess to experience that, as you said, it's if you're giving it away, it means you have it to give.
We all have it to give.
You're remembering that it's in there somehow. And I think with our human limited selves, it's easy to forget, or maybe we've never been told that. I think most people aren't told that they're unconditional love. So we're going through this. I think it's a time of transformation now, where people are waking up to that and recognizing, wait a minute, I think that's who I am now. How can I experience that? How can I live that? And so we're trying to figure out how to shift things to live that way of expressing through life.
Yes, and people don't realize what unconditional love actually is. I get a lot of reader emails and comments and that show me that the confusion lies around human experience of love. Human love is conditional. Humans love their blood relatives, not always, but blood relatives, sexual partners, friends, but it's always a transactional kind of love. It's, I love you because of what you give to me, or I love you because of how you make me feel, or I love you because together we can build a life. It's always, what am I going to get out of it aspect to it. And that's not unconditional love. The other confusion that I get from my readers about unconditional love is they seem to think it means you have to let somebody mistreat you as much as they want. They seem to think if you love somebody unconditionally, you accept their abuse. And that's not true at all. Loving unconditionally means loving somebody just because they exist, just because they're there. Has nothing to do with behavior. You can still choose which behaviors you are willing to accept and which ones you are not willing to accept. And it doesn't mean you don't love that soul unconditionally. It doesn't mean you don't love that human unconditionally. It just means you love yourself too, and you're protecting yourself from harm.
Right. So saying no isn't a rejection of the soul. It is a discernment that the behaviors aren't aligned with you loving yourself. Really.
Yes. It's just like, when you're a parent and you're teaching your child, don't do this and don't do that. You're not saying that because you don't love them. You're saying it because you're training them to fit into society. People need to be trained their whole lives.
That's interesting. Trained by whom? In what way? For what purpose?
Trained by all the people around them so that they have smooth relationships. You see it in marriages all the time. The wife will train the husband to pick his clothes up, and the husband will train the wife, watch football with him. I mean, it's finding a happy medium, but it's also, setting boundaries and making it clear that you love someone unconditionally, but that doesn't mean you're a doormat.
Right. Absolutely. Nanci, if there were particular things that you felt were most important for people to hear from your experience, what would you say that those are? And there's lots, and I encourage everybody to read all your books because we need to know it all. But just the nuggets of, please get this if you don't get any.
Please get this if you don't get anything else. We are powerful. We are aspects of Source, the Almighty, the Creator, the All-Knowing, the All-Loving, the All-Giving. We have tremendous power even though we're kind of captured in these human bodies right now, these bodies are not us. They're animals that we inhabit. We can train them. We can set their personalities aside and be our true spiritual self. So I learned there were 5 spiritual superpowers that we can experience in human life. The first is we can have multiple simultaneous levels of awareness. By that, the easiest formulation of that in human life is you can experience through meditation, or the power of now. You've heard the power of now, being present in the present moment. But you quiet the mind, let all the words stop, make your mind a complete blank, and step back and be aware that you've made your mind a complete blank. And then eventually you're going to see a thought come in. You will see the thought come into the mind. Whose mind is that? You're watching the mind that you saw the thought come in to. So that's the human mind. You're the watcher. And when you get those two, that's multiple simultaneous levels of awareness. You're aware of the human mind, you're aware of yourself in your own mind. Once you can achieve that objective observer feeling, sensation, watching the human, then you're in your spiritual self, and that's where you have the power. You can access what I call universal knowledge. You can learn anything you want to learn from anything the source knows. You can be your own psychic by getting information about your life, other people's lives, the same way from universal knowledge. That's all accessing, what I call accessing universal knowledge. You can learn to consciously manifest the events of your life. You know how when I was in the afterlife, I created this tunnel, and then after that I created a meadow, and after that I created a hospital corridor. Those were real. They were every bit as real as Earth, because we as Source have the power to manifest physical reality that humans think is real. So you can learn to do that consciously. We all do it unconsciously based upon our beliefs, the things that we truly and deeply believe. And most of those beliefs come from childhood before we have any real self-awareness or any real understanding of life and who we are. So we can overcome those childhood beliefs and learn to consciously manifest a much better life for ourselves. We can self-heal. Some of us are lucky enough to heal others. I love the natural healers among us. I wish I could do it more. We can heal these bodies physically, emotionally, mentally, using our spiritual power of self-healing. And we can experience unconditional love. Those are our 5 superpowers.
They are superpowers. And thank you for helping us understand that they're accessible to us here and now while we're in this life that we're in. And I would like to go deeper into those with you, but I think we'll have to save that for another show.
Okay.
I think that there's so much that we can talk about, and I think that would be very inspiring for people to help them understand more how that they can actually bring those 5 truths into their life in a tangible way. I think for some it might seem right now like a dream, an impossibility, because they have no idea how they can manifest, how they can heal. But I do some energy healing, the physical healing, spiritual healing. So I have that taste of that. So I know that I went from being like just a normal everyday person to being able to do that. So I know it's possible.
Yep.
So I'd like if we can help inspire more people to recognize that all these things are possible for themselves.
That's why I wrote my books. That's what my books are about, was how to do all those things.
So because it is about time for us to wrap up before our time is up for the show, how would people get your books and get in touch with you and all the, if you can share what you offer and how people can access that?
My books are available from any bookstore, bricks and mortar or online. Online, Amazon.com carries them, BarnesandNoble.com, eBay, Walmart, a bunch of online bookstores.
And what are the titles of your books?
The first one was Backwards, Returning to Our Source for Answers. The second was Backwards Guidebook. And Backwards Guidebook were originally they were part of 1,000 pages. They were, one manuscript. And I didn't know if I'd ever be able to publish another book after the first one. So I put a summary of everything in the first one. And then my other books kind of expound on that. And Backwards Guidebook answers readers' questions that I got from reading the first book. Third book is called Backwards Beliefs, Revealing Eternal Truths Hidden in Religion. And what that book does is reconciles my Catholic beliefs before I died with what I learned in the afterlife, and explains that you don't have to have everything ripped away from you. You don't have to have all your beliefs, ripped away like I did. You can use them as a foundation and then build on them with the information that I brought back from the afterlife. And that book gives everything I can remember about that history of Earth that I watched. And then the fourth book is called Answers from the Afterlife. And that's really just a compilation of all the emails, newsletters, things I'd sent out over the years, answering readers' questions, organized by topic. And then the fifth book is called Create a New Reality, Move Beyond Law of Attraction Theory. And it explains in detail how to consciously manifest something better into your life, or a whole new life.
Wow. Thank you. And in your website that they could go to for finding all of that?
I have two of them. The first one is backwardsbooks.com, BACKWARDSBOOKS.com. And that's got all my books and CDs and DVDs. And then when I retired from practicing law, I transformed my old NanciDanison.com law firm website into a new website that just deals with manifesting. And so I've got my manifesting materials on there, and there's a way to sign up for manifesting coaching on that website. And you can get a hold of me through either website.
And so you offer one-to-one coaching in manifesting in your life?
Yes.
Wonderful. And I guess nowadays you do that over the phone and internet?
Yes. I've always done it over the phone because my clients are all over the world.
Wonderful. Thank you so very, very much for being a guest on my show, but for coming back from that bliss to help us and to share what's there, what is available, and all of these wonderful tools to help us be able to hopefully live better lives. I think you're doing a great job as a human being, Nanci. So thank you so much.
You only see the spiritual side of me.
We all have all sides, don't we?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we can do another interview at some point and engage with people more and spread the inspiration.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So thank you very much. And thank you to everyone for listening and watching. Bye for now.